So business planning, and we've got the notebooks up here, and I'll tell you I get excited when I see a client come in for consulting with a notebook, because they have gathered some of the information and forms and registrations together in a portable way, in paper. I'm still a paper person, as part of their business planning and organization, and that's a very good thing. So business plan is a written document, and you can read through what's written on the screen, and take the PowerPoint with you and things. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about these things on the bottom, particularly break-even point. We're not going to have time to get into some cash flow projections and that, but profitability, being able to keep your enterprise in the black instead of in the red, if possible. Of course, people want to, keep their taxes low too, but in the long run, if you don't have profit, unless you're super rich, and sometimes that happens, and you don't have to worry so much about it, but if you're not super rich, that profitability is a big deal in order to maintain your enterprise long term. See if I can get this to work. Okay, so a business plan, I already talked about it being a communication tool, a tool for you to use when you come to talk to a banker, an investor, a partner, a consultant, whether that consultant is somebody with the small business centers or the extension service or your accountant or attorney. The business plan can be very helpful as in that way as a communication tool. It can also be very helpful for you in making decisions about what direction to go. And Ken's going to talk about enterprise budgets, and you've got some choices. Do you want to raise this or do you want to raise that? And you've got some choices on marketing. Do you want to market this way or that way? And having your plan written out can help you make those decisions. You're going to include research in your plan. So you've looked into the market. Are people going to buy what you're raising, and what kind of prices do you think you can get for it? None of this planning is going to work out if you think you're going to be able to get $20 a pound, and in reality you can only get $10 a pound. So those are things that are important to know. Now, none of us know for sure what prices are going to be like next year, and we don't know for sure what our production is going to be, but we're going to at least try to reasonably project those numbers. And your research, gathering that information. What did it sell for last year? What did it sell for 100 miles down the road? And putting all of that together to try and make good projections. A complete business plan is possibly the most important document a business owner or a farm plan for a farm owner will prepare. I worked in farm lending for a while, and people would come in with their farm plans, their projections of how many acres they were going to put into wheat, how many acres into hay, how many cows they had, and what kind of prices they could get when they went to market. So depending on your enterprise, some of these things might be more important than others, and depending on your use of the business plan, some of them might be more important than others. I recommend that you start with your objective. Your management plan is going to be who's in charge, who's making the decisions related to what. I worked for a small local family-held corporation for about 10 years, and the husband owned 51% and the wife owned 49%, and that is where sometimes those decisions came down to was he owned a bigger percentage, so he was the final decision maker, although they worked very well together. Operations. So operations is where are you getting your supplies? What are you doing when, and what equipment and people that you need in order to produce what you're expecting to produce. Marketing plan, again, how are you selling? If you're selling wheat on the big that's going down the river on the big barges, your marketing plan is going to be extremely different. You're going to be a price taker. In other words, yeah, you might sell at harvest, or you might wait until February to sell, and maybe you're going to buy futures to help reduce that price risk, but that's a totally different marketing plan than if you're going to the farmer's market or if you're marketing through some local restaurants. Those things, those goals, those plans, very good to get that defined. Financial plans, we're going to talk more about that more in depth. Appendices, you know, the research that you found, your notes when you went and talked to the restaurant owner, those can all be in appendices. Then you go to the general description, and then if you're going to a lender, possibly that executive summary saying what you need to borrow and to do what with. I've already talked a little bit about capital here. It's the investment you bring to the business, a lot of different things it can be, and you need to analyze if you have enough. And if you're looking at buying real estate, you're probably not going to need as big a percentage of that upfront capital as you're going to need if you're talking about money to put in a crop in the spring, expecting to pay back the loan, probably an operating line of credit in the fall after harvest. You're going to need, not going to be able to probably even borrow 35% of the cash needed for that type of an endeavor, although there are some programs available only to farmers that sort of make the rules a little bit different. I'm thinking of the USDA has some programs, and Ken might even be able to talk a little bit more about that, or you might have a section on raising capital. So we're going to emphasize the financial plan here. And one of the things you'll want to do, I was just looking at a financial plan that had a lot of numbers, and those numbers were broken down by different categories, such as the materials going in and the labor going in and the rent going in and equipment costs. But there were no explanations associated with that. So I've made a list of questions, like I was a banker, that I'm going to go over the creator of that business plan with, so we can explain where these numbers came from and why they're projected to be different next year than they were last year. There are some good tools, and I give you some links a little bit later on about some spreadsheet tools and stuff that can help with that. One of the things we don't see happen too often that I think is real important when a person is looking at raising capital or working with investors at least is organizing your financial statements, and it gives you a list of some of those types of documents that you would want to take with you to a consultant, an attorney, accountant, and particularly a lender. Some financial plan mistakes. One of them there being not explaining where the numbers originated, needing to pay yourself before you pay anybody else or before you have a crop to harvest. Those are problem areas that the lenders probably aren't going to be too sympathetic about. So just a little bit about making predictions, because I do work with clients who say, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, how many pounds of carrots I'm going to be able to get out of my quarter-acre plot. And yet, in order to be a good planner, in order to be a good farmer or business person, you have to be willing to make predictions. It's risky. We again don't have those crystal balls, but we're going to predict good things happening, we're going to predict bad things happening, and we're going to weigh the prospects of, is this realistic or not, based on average weather patterns or average yields per acre. If things don't turn out that way, can you handle it? Are you still going to be able to keep your property, put in another crop next year? And those are things we need to evaluate. And again, the crystal ball over here, and just knowing that any business is going to be risky, and farm businesses can be riskier than most. Yet, because of that risk, fewer people are entering that industry, and as a result, there is increased demand for people who are willing to bring those products to market and who are able to make it happen. And this one, the more you know, the more knowledge you have about the business, the more likely you are to make good predictions and decisions. So some need to know things before you can start punching numbers is looking at what prices are, evaluating your plan in terms of why people will buy from you rather than the other maybe more familiar seller. What are you offering that is better than the competition? And then if you're looking at, let's say, setting up a roadside stand, how much traffic is there going by? Is it realistically, can you do a test market before you jump in with both your feet? And pricing. So there's different ways to price your products. Agriculture tends to be price takers. In other words, you can't set your price based on your cost of production. The market is so competitive and so huge, unless you have a way to differentiate your product from the competition, the prices are going to be what the prices are going to be. And so for real small operations, that differentiation can be very important. And we talk about art, not science, again, depending on your product and your competition. So let's say you're planning to charge more than the grocery store charges. Can you do that? Because number one, it's local. That's going to be a premium, because there are people that are willing to pay more than the grocery store because it is raised locally. The quality of your product, is it as good, better, maybe not as good as the perfect tomatoes in the store that taste like clay, but maybe you have a premium taste and maybe you're willing to slice your tomato in order to help your customers understand that. And so, yeah, what are your customers' expectation? And packaging of food products becomes a possible way to get premium prices because you're doing a little better with packaging than somebody else.